just as a bit of an intro, although Mike's unlikely to admit it, he can claim probably to be the most influential Scotch whisky marketer over the past 40 years. Pick up any whisky book, be listed with his achievements, and most of us have fallen victim in our early whisky journeys to some of his brands. Dimple, Hanky Bannister, Southern Comfort, Glenfarclas, Johnny Walker Blue Label, Johnny Walker Green Label, the Diageo Classic Malts, the Rare Malts, the Distillers Editions, the Flora and Fauna series, Cardu, Rochlnagar, pretty much all of the Diageo malt whiskies. And many of us can trace our whiskey journey somewhere to one of Mike's creations and the brands that he's been involved in. We're lucky enough that he hasn't rested on his laurels. He decided that wasn't enough, so he's created a few new brands. One of which is Firkin, and so welcome, Mike. Welcome to the Whiskey List. Well, I need to unmute you, Mike, or you can unmute yourself.
How's that? Is that better?
Yeah, that's much better.
Okay, let's start again. So welcome to everybody. It's a pleasure to be with you tonight, and I look forward to sharing a few drams with you and telling a few stories, I hope.
So I think it's always good to have a whiskey in our glass for starters. So while we just kick off with some of the background and why Firkin and where it came from, we start off with what's the first one that you're going to introduce us to?
The Firkin 10. So can you see that? That's fine. So let's do the magic stuff, shall we? Oh, what a lovely sound that is. There we go. Oh. Okay. Do you want to start talking about it, or?
Well, yeah. So the Firkin 10, that's the Ben Reens.
Yeah, this is Ben Rinnes. It's a Speyside. It's distilled in 2008. Okay, and it's been matured in one of our custom casks, which is a double oak of two types of oak, and then we've also used a Madeira to season the oak. And I can talk about this a bit more in a minute. But you know, if you look at it, what actually you get here is something that's quite interesting. You know, it's a natural color. It's beautiful kind of soft gold, and it's got a touch of amber, I think. What's it like on the nose?
Well, that's 48.9% ABV, which everybody will notice that's quite consistent across the range. Now that's right. It's a pretty random but specific ABV. Is that something that came out of your various tastings? Did you pick it out of a hat?
Well, no, it started out. I mean, it was a conversation that Robin Tuchek of Blackadder and I were having in a Tokyo bar when we were discussing the Firkin whiskey and what we want to do with it. Clearly, you want to get to a position where you have to do the minimal amount of filtration. We never chill filter anyway, but you really want to get hardly any filtration. So you want a fairly high ABV, but you know, we were discussing it and we couldn't quite agree. And then we suddenly got into, okay, when were you born? And he said 1948. And I said, I was born in 1949. So we split the difference, 48.9. That's what we got. You know, cheers. Anyway, what have you got on the nose on this? I think it's quite bold. It's crisp and it's quite spicy. Yeah, I think there's a lot going on here. I don't know anybody else, but I get kind of spice forward. I get some vanilla. And I get some buttery notes. It's fairly oaky, but there's a touch of cream in there. Now for Ben Rinnes, which is normally quite a bold whiskey, it's quite lively. So I think you've got this kind of juxtaposition of the Madeira seasoning along with the double oak gives it a very rounded character. It takes Benrinnes, which is really usually quite an assertive whiskey, and makes it into something that's kind of rich.
So is that really what you look for? Is that that match made in heaven when you try and match the whiskey to the seasoning of the cask?
Yeah, absolutely. We call it soulmate pairing. No, that's not a kind of romantic thing to do. I mean, maybe later on. But what we try and do is match the characteristics of the whiskey to the characteristics of the fortified wine that we want to use, and put something together that will actually enhance the original and not obscure it. I think there's quite a lot of so-called finishes that kind of really obscure and obliterate the original whiskey, and that's clearly what we didn't want to do. The name of the game is actually to get something, then enhance it and make it really quite yum.
Brett says there's a cream and peach note with a spice. Spice is definitely there, bold and assertive. Have there been any, and you can choose not to answer this question. Have there been any matches that after you've matured it didn't quite work?
Not really. I think you've got to be very careful when you're using PX. And we also did some experiments with very small casks as well. And so very small casks didn't work because they ended up being overwooded. So you get too much wood influence. And what we're trying to do is get a balance in the whiskey that actually allows it to kind of take on a new character, but it's kind of, it's a bit like something that matures as it gets older, as we all do. And hopefully, the result is something actually much better. And I think this is in one of those instances. This is absolutely right. It's an intriguing whiskey. I mean, it delivers more as you go along. So love it. This is the first
let's just get back to the Firkin brand and how that started. Obviously, there's an obvious play on words and the innuendo and the dad jokes. But how did you come up with the idea, and why Firkin?
Well, clearly there's the innuendo, but I think what I wanted to do was actually take a new approach to malt whiskey and make it much more fun and much more appealing and much more interesting and much more kind of, bring it to a wider audience. So, the idea of Firkin and what you could actually play with and have a lot of fun with is exactly that. And, there is some relevance to a cask size. The old Firkin cask, which has never been used for whiskey, was 9 imperial gallons. So it was mostly for beer. And it was something you could actually put the beer into. So you could put a Firkin each side of a horse and get the beer to market. So that's why Firkin was the original type of cask. But I saw it and thought, what a great name for whiskey.
Well, here's a bit of a challenge for the audience out there. If you can come up with a play on words, a slogan, a saying involving the word Firkin that Mike hasn't heard of and which he really approves of, you might even win a prize, a bottle. We love giving stuff away at the Whisky List, and here's your chance to win something. So you've got another 45 minutes or so. We try and keep these sessions to an hour. So think about it and submit your entries into the chat, and we'll see what Mike thinks of them.
Yeah. I mean, it's an interesting distillery. It really is. I mean, it was founded in 1829, and it's had its ups and downs. 3 years after it started, they had a mega flood, so it just virtually destroyed it. That they rebuilt it and they started again, and then I think about 1896, it caught fire. So it started again, and then in the 1930s, it crashed and went bankrupt. luckily for us, they're people that don't take no for an answer, and they're very stoical, and they rebuilt it. So yeah, that's what we're enjoying tonight.
It sounds like the Monty Python sketch with the castle on the swamp. But,
more than likely.
So this is the Firkin 10, and there's 4 kind of categories in the range. Can you just go through those briefly, please?
Yeah, sure. We have the Firkin 10, which it started out as we'll have any selection of 10-year-olds, and that's what we buy it as 10-year-old, and then when we put it into the barrel, then this is 2008, so it's about 12 years old. The 49, which I'll discuss in a minute, and each one has got a specific type of soulmate pairing. So we have the Firkin 10 with Madeira. With the 49, we have 2 sherries, which is quite interesting. And that's an Amontillado and an Oloroso. And then the rare is a selection that we can use a number of fortified wines, and then I'll talk each one about that in a second. And then with the Islay, we usually use Masala. But all of these are actually matured in our own custom-built cask, and these custom casks are made from first fill bourbon cask, and then we restave them with a mixture of first fill bourbon and new French oak to our custom char. So we've got a twin oak custom barrel of about probably about 195 litres by the time we've finished restaving and recoupering it.
Excellent. Well, you talked about the 49. Let's leap into that one. The second whiskey, that's the Tully Barden. For those of you with your little bottles.
Let me just get to that. Look at this. This is my miniature bottle. And this is just a great sound, I think, if I can get it open. Oh, look at that, one for the road. Fantastic. Now, you all got your 49 in front of you? Hopefully that's a yes. Yeah. This is one of my favorites. I mean, 1949 was a classic year because that was the year that the distillery at Tully Barden was founded, or rebuilt. And it was also a certain year of yours truly. So it was a good year for us all. So I thought, well, 49 is a good name to call this whiskey. It's actually one of my favorite whiskies. It's one that I discovered. And you know, it's in the Ochil Hills north of Stirling, and it's the gateway to the Highlands. This is a lovely distillery, and you know, it was silent for a very, very long time, but was brought back by one of the great Scottish architects, a guy called William Delme Evans. That's right, William Delme Evans. What a mouthful that is. Anyway, here's to the whiskey. What have we got? I think it's got a lovely, lovely colour. No sample yet. Okay.
This is Oloroso and Amontillado.
Yes.
How come the 2 different types of sherry for this one?
Because of what I wanted to do, you take the actual whiskey to start with, it's a very soft whiskey. So you can't use something that's going to overpower that softness to start with. So what I wanted to do is something built on it. So use Oloroso, which is kind of got some richness and roundedness in terms of flavor notes. And then the Amontillado, which brings this lovely, dry, nutty flavor to it. So put those 2 together, then season the custom cask with it, and then you've got this wonderful interplay of kind of nutty tones, richness, plus the 2 woods. So what you get out is this lovely, it's got a lovely hue to it. It's kind of light golden color. And, you know, when you start nosing it, what do you get? I get soft malt, perhaps sweet biscuit, and for me, it's got a hint of what I call fresh blossom and maybe some fruit in there, summer fruit. Let's see what it. Mm. Mm. That's very crisp. It tingles on the tongue. Get a bit of butterscotch in there. This is a smoochy softness to it. The finish is more of that sweet biscuit, perhaps a little bit of cinnamon. And also that you can just taste the hint of almond nut, which is coming from the Amontillado. So that's fabulous. I would call it soft and nutty. A real charmer. Lovely.
This is reminiscent of the old John Black Tully Barden creations. Was it John Black that used to be the distiller there in the early days?
In the early days, yeah. I think that what they did early on was very early on was really, really good. They had a kind of mixed middle, but the actual spirit itself is actually still, I think, pretty good, and it's a great base on which to build. Lovely. How is everybody going with it? Hopefully very well. Yum.
Most people are just lurking in the background as kind of voyeuristic. So
okay.
Please don't be shy. Put in your cameras. We're all friends.
I think this is a real belter of a dram. It is. Somebody just said light and fresh. It's soft and it's nutty and it's one of those lovely drams. Real favourite of mine. Yeah.
These are all single cask releases. Obviously limited bottles. We're lucky enough to get a fair chunk of them in Australia. How many markets are you in around the world?
Currently about 6, but it's interesting development. I mean, what we like to be is with smaller independent retailers or distributors. We're not in with the big people, and we don't want to be, because I think that's kind of that's for other people to be bigger and better and huge. We're not. We're boutique. We're independent, and we love what we're doing. So it's limited amount. So we're not a huge commercial organisation. We're a boutique, small family company. We have about half a dozen employees or friends.
The number 3 is the Firkin Rare, the Altmore.
Okay, now let me just have a quick change. Otherwise, I'll be losing my glasses. Oops.
It's always interesting watching people stand up during a Zoom event and just seeing who's actually wearing pants.
All right, okay. That's good. Who's got? Well, now, what are we looking at here?
So what's the significance of the rare in the Firkin Rare range?
Rare is something you don't normally get. This is both a whiskey and a distillery that's pretty difficult to find. As a whiskey, it's highly prized by blenders, and it's not often released as a single malt. the actual location of the distillery, you know, it's in an area that's renowned for its fog and its mist. So often, you know, you approach the distillery and it kind of disappears. The road, I think, leading up to it is called something like the foggy moss. So, you know, and it's you know, it's absolutely true. I mean, the area was actually was renowned for illicit distilling years ago. You know, because nobody could find it. You know, but you know, this is just a fabulous dram. The color is kind of deep gold. And
this is a tawny port.
And it's in tawny port, and you know what you get is kind of a very interesting nose on it. I mean, this is, I guess it's a time and a place when everything seems to come together. I get big, fresh red fruit, and oak spice, and on the taste, it's lovely. I mean, it rolls over the tongue. Lovely. It's round, it's long. It's a great combo. I get red fruit and creamy malt together. And at the end of it, it's rich, but pretty succulent. I love it. It's a belter of a dram.
Just one quick question on the Tully Barden. How long was it in each? Was it each type of cask for different periods, or do you season the cask with the two different types of sherries first before you put the whiskey in?
Yeah, well, basically when we buy it in, it can be in a range of casks, but normally it would be in a hogshead, and we try and pick them that they're from something that is really quite nice, in wood, and then we put it in our custom cask. So the custom cask is then seasoned with Oloroso and the Amontillado cherries, and then we empty that out and then fill it with the Tully Barden and leave it. And I get to taste it kind of every 6 months. It's tough, it's hard yards, but
Somebody's got to do
it. Yeah, somebody's got to do it. And you choose it as it progresses, and I mean, luckily for us, I mean, there's no big commercial pressure that says you've got to have this by then. So it's ready when it's ready, which is rather nice. And that's what I think we've got. I mean, this is a lovely dram. It takes all more to a new level.
If you look at the bottles and the boxes, at a time when we've seen rebranding of whiskies into very clean, neat, minimalistic brands, you've gone completely opposite. It's a raised label. It's very intricate designs. It's a bronze. It's certainly not a cheap label. What prompted you to go the opposite direction to pretty much the latest industry trend?
Oh, well, I've always been a leader, not a follower, I think. And I set the trend when we did classic malts, which we introduced the whole new genre of, soft pastel colours, etc., etc. So, you've got to actually, what I wanted to do was actually create something that reflected the craftsmanship that's gone into it. And, I was talking to somebody that was visually impaired, and they were running their hands over a label and telling me, this is what I can feel. And when you can feel something, shut your eyes, run your hands across the label, and you go, wow, somebody's taken a lot of time and effort with that. And that's what I think that just reflects the whiskey inside it. And it's, yes, we are different, but that's what we are. And we combine that with some degree of simplicity with a lower label, which says, just gives you the plain facts. But the thing for us is basically this: is that we want to be, come over in very simple, easy to understand terms. So, as you can see, most of this comes from the heart. So, it's great to actually put something together that you can share and appreciate with other people. And whiskey is about enjoying stuff, that, and that's all our approach is. So here we go.
Excellent.
That's the real close-up on the label.
Right, we've gone through the first three: the Ben Reens, the Tully Barden, and the Altmore. Any particular favourites?
No, not really. I mean, I think it's horses for courses, and it's there's a time and a place that you say, yeah, I really fancy one of these, and no, I don't have a favourite. I mean, maybe the Tully Barden, but the Firkin 49, but the others, I mean, the rare ones are just fabulous, and now we're on to one of the classics, which is the Firkin Isla. There we are. Got Firkin 10 there, so we've got a vote.
So it's a range of preferences.
Yeah, and that's what we've tried to do, is actually put together some really interesting whiskies and really interesting styles, and it's all about depth of flavour. Oh, there you go.
Right. So that leads us into the fourth
Isla.
one, into the Firkin Isla.
Yeah.
The third was the Firkin Rare, the Altmore.
Yeah.
And so the Ben Reens, Brett reckons just a few drops of water opens up nicely.
Yep, absolutely. So let's see what we've got here. Okay. Kalila. Love it. Most people say, well, how do you pronounce it? Where does the name come from? It's not a Druid island. It's not a Gaelic for druids. It's not somebody misspelt Colila. That's quite a lot of people have pronounced it. But I mean, this is a fabulous one. I mean, it's you look at the colour then, and to give you an example of what Kalila would normally be like, this is a cast sample before it goes in. You can have a look at that, and it's very, very light indeed. And that's the traditional colour for Kalila. But what it gets from our custom cask and the masala that we use is this kind of lovely golden hue. Lovely. On the nose, I mean, it's magic. Classic smoky peat, maybe a bit salty, hint of sweetness. It's got sweet, savoury smoke. It's got a kind of a rounded sweetness that I would call it's almost bonfire embers, but rounded. It's not your traditional kind of big peaty. It's smoky. It's salty. It's iodine, chewy, peppery. It's lovely. It's got this lovely sort of salty, smoky, peaty, rounded finish. It's like, and personally, I always add a couple of drops of water because I usually get them to, it rounds it out and starts releasing other flavors. But this is what we call a Firkin original. I mean, it's lovely.
Well, one of my light bulb whiskies was the Kalila Distillers Edition.
Right.
And I reckon that Kalila, as with wood finishing, you do get quite a lot of consistent balance.
You
It
do.
certainly does. It works really well with the wine cask finishes.
Yeah, I mean, finishes. We like to call them soulmate pairing and what have you.
Yeah.
I mean, Distiller's Edition I created, 1992? And what was interesting was this is actually, it's just lovely as a whiskey. And, I took some of the experiences I had with creating the Distiller's Edition classic malts and, sort of, kept them up here. And when I started my own company, tried some more experimentation, and this is what we've got. Oh, it's super dry. Any questions?
Well, that's the 4 Firkins. We've still got 2 more to go in another one of your the brands that you've created. But anything for Mike on the Firkins before we leave the range? You can. There's what, 17 of us. So if you do want to unmute and ask the question, please feel free.
Here's my suggestion. All right. Come on, Mark, what do we got?
The lady of the night, she was modest, she wore a merkin.
Sorry, I didn't see that.
The lady of the night, she was working. She was modest, so she wore a merkin. After a night of pulling tricks, she needed stiff drinks, so she relaxed with a neat dram of Firkin.
That's a good one.
Love it. Okay, so where are we?
Okay, so yeah.
You want to get into that?
Just a couple of questions. If it for Khalil, if it wasn't masala, what would you consider? What other casks?
Something that's kind of it's the combination of our custom cask, which is 2 oaks, and then the type of 45 wine. I mean, I think that you've got to find something that's relatively spicy and gives it a kind of, a tad of sweetness. So you're kind of either looking at masala, you're possibly thinking maybe a Madeira wine, or maybe down the road we might try an orange muscat, because I think that would have interesting flavors. But the masala is a belter. I mean, it just produces such a lovely dram.
Right. Next range we've got is your
Founders.
The Founders. Now it's a different brand, different range completely. Again, very intricate label designs. What's the background to this? Does this predate the Firkins?
Oh yeah, it goes back to what, 2004, 2005 when I set up Spencer Collins. So when I hung up my corporate boots and started my whiskey company, it was called Spencer Collins, and this and Imperial Tribute were my first 2 whiskeys, and this is kind of rather special because it's we use the B word here. It's called blended, right? So blended malts, and I'd had some pretty reasonable success with my first venture under blended malts called Johnny Walker Pure Malt, or went into Johnny Walker Green Label, and that was a great foray into blended malt whiskey at a time when people weren't blending at all, and so I thought, well, what is it that you can do with blended malt whiskey that you can't do with single malt whiskey? And you can create layers of different flavors. For me, it's a bit like if you're cooking, it's like using a tomato and then adding a tad of garlic to it, if you're from left field, but you're actually creating something that's actually a different flavor that you can't get with just tomatoes, and that's what I think this is all about. So we use three single malt whiskies in this. This is at cask strength. Don't you love that sound?
So yeah, 54.8% cask strength.
Yes, it is. Now, you know, kind of a word on cask strength for folk. You know, you've really got to, you know, enjoy it the way you like it. There's, you know, some people say, you know, you can't put water with it. Actually, I find that my palate needs water with cask strength whiskey. So, you know, I add, you know, a reasonable amount of drops to it, so that it loosens up the whiskey. Because otherwise, for me, my palate, and everybody's palate is different. You know, the spirit overcomes what I want to taste. So, you know, and on the nose, you get something that's really, really quite interesting. The colour, as you can see, is very dark and it's deep amber. And this comes from the Madeira barriques that we used. And basically, we took the Madeira barriques in from Portugal and rebuilt them. So we rebuilt them to our specification. And that's what I found out, that you know what you could actually do with different types of casks and different types of wood. So this is our first foray into kind of, you know, really doing things in a deep wood. And we use 3 whiskies: a Speyside, a Highland, and an Islay. And the Islay is Galila, and I can't tell you what the other ones are, but it produces something really quite special. You know, what do you get?
So this is continuously in production, or is it limited? Does it evolve?
No, it's limited. It's limited. It's basically the 10-year-old component of Imperial Tribute. So, you know, we laid down a number of casks, and when they're gone, they're gone. So this is a limited edition run. But you know, it's big. I mean, it's, you know, you get huge amount of Madeira spice. What else do you get? I get honeycomb, I get dried fruits, you know. I think there's a bit of kind of oaky background into it. It's a big, bold, complex flavour. I mean, it kind of unpacks. You get, you know, kind of, get the dried fruit. I get the Madeira spice. I get kind of honeycomb on the back palate, and on the finish, you know, always a great test of a great whiskey. Just stand back from it and, you know, what have I got? It's long, it's lingering, it's kind of roasted oak. There's a little bit of caramelized toffee, and there's also this rich fruit, but it's got a drying finish. But part of that is due to the cask and the strength of the whiskey. But, you know, I think this is a lovely original, and it shows what you can do by layering whiskey. You know? Fabulous.
Just a question about somebody's curious. Razor's curious about what's coming next from Firkin. Are there any sneak peeks? Any? We won't tell anybody. But
well, I've got the samples that arrived yesterday from the UK, so I haven't finished tasting them. So at this stage, I can't really say, but they will be good. And there's some interesting ones under, you know, kind of the rare label. And what I'm trying to do is keep some of the, you know, keep the 10 to try a few seasons with the Ben Rinnes, and keep the Kalila, because I think the Kalilas are just, you know, those lovely whiskies. But do some experimentation around some of the others. So watch this space.
Then the last one moving on to is the Imperial Tribute. It's obviously kept last for, well, let's go on to probably the more impressive, well, the box of that one. This obviously it's got fantastic packaging. Again, limited.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. I mean, we only release 300 bottles a year, and what we set out to do was actually create something that is, you know, really rather special. This is an Imperial Tribute is a gem. You know, and I cut my teeth actually building some of the premium whiskies like Blue Label, and you know, learnt some of the things that you can do, and then thought, well, can I take it in a different direction? Can I take it as not a step further? Can I take it into a world of, you know, a depth of flavour that doesn't exist? And I think, you know, being falsely modest, I think that we've done that. I mean, it's a really voluptuous whiskey. You know, it's really rather yummy. And the reason that we actually went to such great lengths to put it into very special packaging is to reflect the quality of the whiskey, and it makes a brilliant gift, you know. And for those out there that are looking for something that's really interesting and actually fabulous, then this is the one to go for. But I would say that wouldn't I?
Saying there's a lot of personalizations. You can actually put somebody's name on the bottle.
Yeah. We personalize every bottle to order. So you get your name, you get whoever you're giving it to, their name, the occasion, and then we hand wrap the gift box. We have a certificate of ownership, and it also has the. If you look at this. If you look, you can look at, you see that here, for example, that's where it's all personalised from an occasion. And then we gift wrap it, and it is an amazing gift. And we've done it for the great and the good, and for those that you know, really love their whiskey. So what is it? Somebody's saying, well, let me find a spare glass. There must be one the same. Yep.
Well, with only 300 a year, we're lucky enough to be able to have some in our sampling packs. That's a fantastic treat. Can you let us know some of the distilleries that have gone into this this blend?
Well, not really. Because one of the interesting aspects of this whiskey is I managed to get hold of some very old or older whiskies, and you know they're not normally attainable at all, and you know, people did me a lot of favors, but you know I can't really tell you exactly whose whiskies have gone into it because I would never get any more. But you know that's part of the interesting parts of it. So you basically take the 10-year-old Founders Reserve and use that as the base, okay? And then you take off that you take 20-year-old, 30-year-old, and 40-year-old whiskies and layer. So the layering creates complexity. And when I find a
Well, Megan, now you know why we've left this one till last.
it's lovely. Let me go find a modicum of it. Hang on. It's not that.
So this is at 46%, which is for a blend is quite high ABV.
Yeah, but you know, you talk about blend. I mean, let's talk. It's a superb luxury whiskey. You know, people talk. You know, they use the blend word as if it's, you know, kind of, you know, something that's second rate. This isn't. This is fabulous. This is just an amazing whiskey. You know, and what do you get from it? I mean, I think Charles MacLean is probably one of the most renowned of whiskey writers in Scotland. Called it highly distinguished, and it said, you know, what was it? Venerably aged and absolutely finessed, and truly distinguished, I think. And you know, what you've got is kind of, it's got those wonderful legs in the glass. Yeah, it's got that lovely deep amber colour, and on the nose, you know, this ends up being really quite complex. Hints of peat and smoke. You know, it's overlaid by, you know, honeycomb. I get, you know, some Christmas pudding, and it's dried fruit and mellow oak, and taste. I mean, it's just gorgeous. I mean, it's kind of rich. It's got very subtle spice in it, but it's got a great elegance and complexity to it. You know, I mean, if you look at the wood profile of it, I mean, this is very interesting in terms of you know, putting the whiskies into the context. I think it's you know, very richly woody, but it kind of melts, you know, into a middle, sumptuous middle.
Megan, if you look at the whiskey list, the font of all whiskey knowledge, it's listed at $250. So don't know if you need to mortgage your house, but that's how much it sells for.
Yeah, so I think it's pretty reasonable, actually. I mean, for something this good. I mean, it's delicious. I mean, you know. Yum. You know, I mean, that is really quite sumptuous. What I set out to do is create a voluptuous whiskey. You know, big, rounded, and I think, you know, that delivers in spades. I mean, if I wanted to describe it as something, I think it goes down singing hymns. Yeah, I mean, it's a lovely whiskey. So it not only, I mean, icing on the cake is it looks $1 million. Makes a wonderful gift, or, you know, kind of maybe have a L'Oreal moment, you know, because you're worth it. Give one to yourself.
Yeah, I think most of us have those on a daily basis, us whiskey drinkers.
Yeah. And, you know, I mean, that's absolutely fabulous.
Well, most for people that don't know, as you can probably guess by Mike's accent, he actually now lives in Adelaide, which is fantastic for us in Australia, because hopefully we do get a decent allocation of his whiskies. But also, Mike, when you're not drinking Firkins or Spencer Collings, and I haven't had anything to drink even.
Yeah, go on. Yeah.
What whiskies do you enjoy?
I'm, you know, I think maybe I have quite a Catholic taste, and that Catholic means wide-ranging taste. And I like interesting whiskies. You know, what are my go-to favourites? I think for me, Glenfarclas 15-year-old is a go-to favourite, because I think that, you know, I love what they do, and I think that they produce some really lovely whiskies. I love some of the distillers editions that I did from years back, and I still luckily kept, you know, a fair few collections of that. And what else? I think the Lagavulin Distillers Edition is probably, if I was looking for a very interesting whiskey. But, you know, end of the day, there's so much out there to enjoy, and I think that's what we're trying to do with Firkin. You know, Firkin is about kind of bringing enjoyment and relaxation to the whiskey moment. I think we're getting very precious about some of the ways in which we describe whiskies. And I think that what we need to do is just relax and enjoy the whiskies that we have. And hopefully the Firkin not only makes you smile a bit, adds a sense of mischievous humor, but also delivers some great drafts. Yeah.
Excellent.
Hopefully you've enjoyed all of them. They're all different.
Is any questions for Mike before we start wrapping up? Remember that for those of you who joined late, this is recorded on our YouTube channel. If you just go to YouTube and search the Whisky List, you'll find all the videos of our tastings and our shows, etc. Excellent, good question, Professor. Mike, what would you like to hear from the group?
I would like to hear what they like about Firkin and what they've enjoyed from this evening in terms of their tingling their taste buds.
Well, don't be shy. Anything that you'd like to see coming out of Firkin? Any particular distilleries that maybe not necessarily are used by independent bottlers that you'd like to see Mike try and get his hands on?
Mike, I'd just like to thank you for what you've done with Firkin. I'm a big fan of this rare, and thanks for commenting on our episode. Can't wait to see what you're going to do next. I absolutely love this rare, and I have to get a second bottle, and I'm getting a bottle of the Kelly that's coming as well, and my samples when they finally arrive. Cheers.
Good, excellent. Thank you.
So that's really what this is all about. Is we don't know what we don't know, and it's all about trying things out for yourself, not really listening to anybody else's. Everybody's got a different opinion. Everybody's got different taste buds, and that's a way of exploring. It's the rabbit hole of whiskey exploration is completely endless.
Excellent.
Well, thanks everybody, and
thank you
your time, Mike. It's been lovely chatting to you.
Here. So, cheers. Love to talk to you, and enjoy your Firkin whiskies, as well as the founders and a bit of Imperial Tribute.
And just in case, what we'd like to see, Brett asked, is there Lagavulin Firkin anywhere on the horizon?
No, there isn't, unfortunately. It's very difficult to get your hands on Lagavulin as an independent, because that's that, and having set the policy years ago, I can hardly say whoops. So at the end of the day, Lagavulin, you can't get enough of it, and all respect to Diageo. I mean, they've kept to that, and I think I respect them for it.
Linkwood or Clynelish?
Love to get some Linkwood. I think we might find a little bit of that coming down the tracks. You never know.
Nice.
What about some of the Strathclyde?
Possibly not. It's a question of what you can get and what's available, and what kind of condition it's in, really. And I think what we're trying to do is actually deliver reasonable value for people, at the same time as going through a number of additional processes that actually deliver something special. So if we can get hold of whiskies that are actually reasonable, as opposed to kind of and it depends on what they've been kept in as well. So I think there's a lot of kind of you can't just take everything in blind. Love to get hold of some, but let's see what happens.
Fantastic. Well, we're going to keep an eagle eye out for some of the next Firkin releases over time, and hope to see you at some of our events in person. So thanks again, Mike. It's been lovely. Thanks everybody for joining us. We'll see you at our next event.
Thank you indeed. Good night.